It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of August 19th, 1994. And we've got 4 movies to look at today, so let's just get right on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend in quotation marks, because this was not a big hit critically or financially. The erotic thriller starring Bruce Willis, because heaven forbid we need to see him in an erotic thriller. This is Color of Night. So yeah, needless to say, this was probably the worst movie that Bruce Willis was in, although technically he was in North, but at least in North he was actually playing a character that kind of made sense for the purpose of that movie. Even though North is a god-awful movie, he's one of the few things in there that I actually did like about that movie. Here, he just does not fit here at all. I'm sorry, I do not see John McClane in an erotic thriller and working out so well, but then again, Michael Douglas didn't seem like he'd work out well in Basic Instinct, and that's basically one of the best, probably the best erotic thriller we've ever gotten. But yeah, this movie just really doesn't work. Like, you can't buy into this relationship between him and Jane Marsh, the woman in this movie, but it's bad enough that that doesn't work. Everything else about this movie is completely ridiculous and stupid. This has way too good of a cast to be in this movie. You got Leslie Ann Warren, Brad Dourif, Lance Henriksen, Scott Bakula, Ruben Blades in here, and that'd be bad enough. But it gets even stupider. Like you see in the trailer, like the person who supposedly is the killer is using the thing with the cars in the back to try to kill Bruce Willis's character. And it's just like, when Bad Boys 2 makes that look more realistic than this movie does, that's a problem. And you can kind of figure out what the twist is going to be at the end, and it really does not work. It's a movie that's just all over the place. It's sloppy, it's lackluster, it's not enjoyable on any level, shape, or form. It's a terrible movie. It's a movie that's just so bad. This director hasn't directed a movie in 14 years, and you can kind of see why, because this is not very good. Like, even the sex scenes in this movie are not that great. I mean, Maxim Magazine singled this film out as having the best sex scene in film history. I can think of many other movies that had better sex scenes than this movie does. Like, you cannot buy into this whatsoever. It's a movie that's just very sloppy, all over the place, trying to sell you on TNA, which is not really all that good. It's just a mess. It's a mess on so many levels. Avoid this movie like the plague. It's definitely one of the worst movies from '94. Color of Night, just an awful movie. Let's see if we can turn the tide around with a much more family-friendlier movie than this movie is, and I say that on so many levels because this one is actually made for families. It's Andre. And no, it's not that George Miller. I thought that was that George Miller too, but no. This is the same George Miller that gave us the thrilling masterpiece that is The Neverending Story 2, The Next Chapter, which, in truth, was not actually a very good movie, but, I don't know. This one was just okay. I mean, you have, Tina Majorino, I should say, Tina Majorino, who has been in a couple of movies early on in her career. We looked at one of the movies she was in earlier this year with When a Man Loves a Woman. She'd later be seen in Waterworld, and then Karina. And then she took a break from acting, and then she kind of came back with Napoleon Dynamite. She was in that movie. And then her career kind of took off again after that, being in Veronica Mars. She was also in Scorpion, Grey's Anatomy, all these different TV shows. And, she's not a bad actress. She works here with this performance with the Seal here. The Seal in this movie actually is trained pretty well here, but overall, it's an okay movie, but it definitely feels like Paramount's trying to answer to Warner Brothers' success with Free Willy the year before, and it gets pretty silly, and you can see it in the trailer that it gets really silly. Like, let's put the Seal in these clothes and make it look like he's a human being, and that's funny, and it's not really. It's just like, it's kind of predictable. It's a mostly forgettable film, but it's not a terrible movie by any chance. The chemistry between the girl and the Seal works out pretty well, but it's just a mediocre movie. There's nothing really all that spectacular about it. There's nothing really all that amazing about it. It's just kind of a movie that's there. But like I said, it's not a bad film. It could have been a whole lot better, but it is what it is. Take it for what it is. Some people have some nostalgic remembrance of this movie. I personally don't. I didn't really see it a whole lot. I saw the previews for it when I was little, but I never really got to see it until later on in my life. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. So, anyway, that's Andre. So let's move on to the next movie, and that is Damon Wayans in the superhero comedy Blank Man. Boy, thank God for Blade and Black Panther, because I gotta tell you, black superheroes in movies did not get off to the strongest of starts with this, and then the year before we had the Meteor Man, and I mean, this movie really does not work. I mean, Damon Wayans can be very funny, and so can David Alan Grier. This has a great cast overall. When you really look at the list here, you've got Damon Wayans, you got David Alan Grier, John Polito, Robin Givens, Jason Alexander, Lynn Thigpen, Arsenio Hall's in here. Tony Cox has a cameo in here as Midget Man. There's a lot of potential here for something really funny, but it just doesn't really go that far. It tries to play it a little too safe, but also trying to be a little bit too risque. And you can't really make this movie work with Damon Wayans playing this character here, who's kind of nerdy, but also kind of acts mentally challenged too. Like it's hard to really laugh at this because I really don't know what he's trying to do with this role here, and you see some of the jokes in there. They're not really all that clever. Most of them are just kind of mediocre. Sometimes there'll be a good joke here or there. Like I like the part where they show in the trailer where J5's going down the steps and he completely falls completely all over the steps and all that. That stuff like that's kind of funny, but like the attempts at gross out humor is kind of lackluster. And this director Mike Binder has made so much better movies, so much far superior films, especially later on down the road with The Upside of Anger and then Reign Over Me. But this was a film that could have had potential, maybe with a better script, but it just didn't work. It's a film that's just kind of there. It's just like there's not really a whole lot there that makes it funny. It's not really all that clever. It kind of wastes a lot of these talented people, and I don't know. I just never really got anything out of it. This is another one of those movies I used to see the trailers for all the time when I was little, and there was just nothing there that really made me want to see this movie, honestly. And it took me a long time to actually watch it, but when I finally did, I finally realized that, yeah, there was a reason why I never wanted to watch this movie, because it really wasn't all that good. And it's a shame, too, because Damon Wayans has made some good movies, and we'll get to some of them at least later on down the road, but this one's definitely not one of them. So, yeah, that's a hard pass on Blank Man. So, with that said, let's move on to the last movie, and that is Eric Stoltz and Julie Delpy in Killing Zoe. So this is directed by Roger Avary, who you may know as the scriptwriter for both Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. When he became a director, he really didn't have a ton of good movies to his name. I think there's only one movie I ever really liked of his as a director, and that was The Rules of Attraction. And quite honestly, Pulp Fiction may have been his only real gem, because after this he wrote Silent Hill, which was not a good movie, and Beowulf, which was just a passable movie. But yeah, as far as the director, he doesn't really have a whole lot of good movies to his track record, and this one definitely isn't. Even though it does try very hard, it tries to have this kind of sense of what a Tarantino movie would be like. It's too mean-spirited for its own good. It's a movie that I think tries way too hard. Like, when Quentin Tarantino made a movie back then that was kind of like this, he had a sense of fun with it, but this one, you don't like any of these characters in this movie whatsoever. They're just kind of there to be stereotypes. They're kind of there to just be kind of mediocre. It's nothing but cliches and all that. You never really get invested in the story whatsoever, and you don't get invested in these two characters that you're supposed to be following, and it's just like, it just really didn't work. It's a movie that didn't really work on any level, and they actually made a semi-sequel to this later on down the road, which I never even heard of until recently. It's called Lucky Day, and that should probably tell you a whole lot about that movie, but I mean, really, there's nothing more that I can really say about this one. It's just kind of a mediocre film, nothing really all that exciting, and it's kind of a sum up of most of the movies this week. None of them really had a lasting impact, except either being not very good or just downright terrible. So, not a good week for the movies this week. So with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and next time we meet, we'll look at the films that end August 1994, 5 of them to be exact, including Natural Born Killers from Oliver Stone and written by Quentin Tarantino. We also have Christopher Lloyd in the camp comedy Camp Nowhere, John Candy's last movie, Wagons East, Julia Sweeney in It's Pat the movie, based off the SNL character, and also The Advocate. So we'll look at those movies next time. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.